अब हम जो डिस्कस करेंगे वो है कॉर्नेलियस का जो पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू है। अब हम उसको डिस्कस करेंगे। जस्टिस कॉर्नेलियस उन्होंने क्या कहा है। पहले उनके तो पॉइंट समझ आ गए ना हमें, शहाबुद्दीन का भी और जस्टिस मुनीर का भी। अब जो हमने पॉइंट इसमें बेटा डिस्कस करना है वो जस्टिस कॉर्नेलियस के हवाले से है। जी, जीआर हैं साथ।
जी सर।
कॉर्नेलियस ने इख्तलाफ किया था कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो है वो प्रिवेल करेगा और जो फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन है उसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है। अब आप देखिए इन्होंने अपना कैसे केस बिल्ड किया। जी, जीआर है साथ बेटा।
जी सर।
जी
सर
बेटा
यहाँ
पढ़े।
से पढ़ लिया हुआ था हमने, थोड़ा नीचे से शुरू करना है।
नहीं बेटा ये नहीं पढ़ा। पढ़ लिया ये। ये नहीं पढ़ा ना, ये तो आगे जजमेंट के अंदर से पढ़ना है हमने।
जी सर, ओके।
ये नहीं पढ़ा। ऊपर आपने सिर्फ उसका जो जिस्ट थी, समरी थी, वो पढ़ा था। ये आगे तो उसका डिटेल है ये। जी।
I agree with I agree with the resulting order proposed in these cases by my Lord the Chief Justice, with whom my learned brothers have concerned. But as on certain points I find myself, with great regret, unable to accede to the reasoning which has prevailed with my Lord and my learned brothers, it is necessary that I should give my own reasons for varying the orders made in these four cases by the learned judges of the High Court of West Pakistan, in my own words.
ठीक हो गया कि वो जो जजेस थे उनके साथ इन्होंने इख्तलाफ किया और अपना शहाबुद्दीन अमीरुद्दीन और जस्टिस मुनीर, अब इन्होंने अपना जो है उन्होंने जो है वो लीगल ऑर्डर जो है उसको जो इन्फोर्स किया और कहा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन जो है एज नियरली एज मे बी जो है वो इन्फोर्स हो सकता है। प्रेसिडेंट के पास अख्तियारात हैं कि वो तमाम कानून बना सकता है और फंडामेंटल राइट्स जो हैं उसको उन्होंने सस्पेंड कर दिया। लेकिन कॉर्नेलियस साहब ने जो है उन्होंने इससे डिसएग्री किया। अब आप देखें वो क्या लिखते हैं। और यही कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल बात भी है और यही लॉ, एज पर लॉ की बात है ये। जी।
It will be convenient to state at the outset the nature of the orders which came under consideration in each of these cases in the High Court. In Constitutional Criminal Appeal Number 1 of 1957, which has been preferred by the state against Doso and Muhammad Khan, the position was that Doso and Muhammad Khan had been convicted under the Frontier Crimes Regulation 1901 by the Deputy Commissioner of Laura Lai, a special area excluded from the jurisdiction of the High Court as well as of this court by Article 178 of the late Constitution, to which I shall refer hereafter as the Constitution of 1956, and had been sentenced to imprisonment of certain terms. They were undergoing imprisonment in a jail at Mach in Balochistan, which is within the jurisdiction of the High Court as well as of this court. It was represented before the High Court by Dosto and Muhammad Khan that their detention at Mach was illegal on the major ground that the provisions of the regulation relating to criminal references were void by operation of Article 4 of the Constitution of 1956, as these provisions involve discrimination on grounds of race, Article 5 of the Constitution of 1956, which declared that all citizens were equal before the law and were entitled to equal protection of law, was cited in this behalf. A division bench of the High Court allowed the petition, which was for a writ of habeas
हेबियस
corpus
कॉर्पस, हेबियस
on the
कॉर्पस इलीगल डिटेंशन। हेबियस कॉर्पस होता है किसी को उसकी मर्जी के बगैर कहीं पर कैद कर लेना, उसको कहते हैं हेबियस कॉर्पस। ये भट्टे के मजदूरों को भट्टे मालका नहीं अपने कैद कर लेते, तो ये हेबियस कॉर्पस इलीगल डिटेंशन को बोलते हैं। किसी को कोई बंदा गैर कानूनी तौर पर डिटेन करता है तो वो रिट की जाती है हाई कोर्ट में, जिसको कहते हैं रिट ऑफ हेबियस कॉर्पस।
on the ground that the High Court had jurisdiction in respect of persons detained within their territorial jurisdiction, and as for the conviction, it was held to be without valid legal sanction having been obtained by a proceeding under Section 11 and other relevant provisions of the regulation, which were repugnant to Article 5
Repugnant to the Article 5 कि Article 5 के वो खिलाफ हैं
and consequently were void under Article 4 of the Constitution of 1956.
अब ये देखें, इधर इन्होंने अपना व्यू बड़ा क्लियर दे दिया। It was held to be without valid legal sanction having been obtained by proceeding under Section 11 and other relevant provisions of the regulation which were repugnant to the Article 5। repugnant का मतलब है Article 5 के वो खिलाफ हैं, and the consequently were void under the Article 4 of the Constitution of 1956। कोई भी कानून जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1956 के खिलाफ है, रिपग्नेंट है, वो वाइड है जी।
A number of questions arose out of the case. The first was whether the jailer of the Mach jail was acting in compliance with a valid warrant in detaining the two petitioners. This question does not appear to have received any consideration at the hands of the learned judges. The second question is whether, in the absence of jurisdiction in respect of things done with the special areas in which Loralai is included, the High Court acted properly in declaring that the conviction by the Deputy Commissioner of Loralai was an illegal order. Criminal Appeal number 24 of 1957 has been brought by Sabz Ali and Muhammad Akbar by special leave granted to them to consider the following questions, namely, whether Sabz Ali's detention by order of the Deputy Commissioner was legal in view of the fact that he was being tried by a jirga, if whether the Deputy Commissioner's order referring the case to a jirga was legal, in the absence of an expression of an opinion that trial in the ordinary courts was inexpedient, and whether the constitution of the jirga was proper in view of a certain decision by the Supreme Court, notwithstanding that it was in compliance with an act of the Northwest Frontier Province passed in 1954. The first question had been agitated before the High Court, which had held that the detention of Sabz Ali was under that those orders were not rendered unlawful by the fact that the case had been preferred to a jirga for inquiry and report. As regards the
second question,
the second question of fact, the reply of the High Court was that the reference to jirga had been under Section 15 of the regulation and necessarily implied that the Deputy Commissioner had decided that it was inconvenient to have the question of the guilt or innocence of the accused persons tried by the ordinary courts. On the third question, the learned judges were of the view that the constitution of the jirga, which consisted of 3 magistrates and 1 non-official, was not illegal. The High Court decided one further matter, namely that the petitioners were entitled to be defended by a lawyer at the trial, and made a direction accordingly, acting under Article 7 of the Constitution of 1956. This question will also require to be considered in this judgment.
ठीक हो गया, सारा क्लियर हो गया बेटा कि इन्होंने कहा कि वो जो एरियाज थे, आपको पता लगा कि हाई कोर्ट की जुरिस्डिक्शन इस एरिया में कैसे हुई। जो स्पेशल एरियाज हैं वो हाई कोर्ट की जुरिस्डिक्शन से बाहर थे, लेकिन वो जो मच जेल थी जहां पर उनको रखा गया वो हाई कोर्ट की जुरिस्डिक्शन के अंदर है। तो यहाँ पे ये देखना पड़ेगा कि वो जो जेलर है उसके पास कोई अरेस्ट वारंट आए हैं जिसके तहत वो जेल में उसको मुंतकिल किया गया है, नंबर वन। नंबर टू, क्या जो कमिश्नर ने जो जिरगे के पास भेजा वो सही था या गलत था? कमिश्नर ने बिल्कुल सही जिरगे के पास भेजा, लेकिन जिरगे के पास जो मैटर भेजा वो हाईकोर्ट क्या कहती है, वो इंक्वायरी के लिए भेजा, लेकिन उसके ऊपर डिसीजन फिर डिप्टी कमिश्नर ने किया। तो तीसरा पॉइंट इसमें यह है कि कोई भी जो रेगुलेशन जो है वो अगर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ है तो उसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है। जी।
Criminal Appeal number 60 of 1958 has been brought by the Deputy Commissioner of Sibbi and the Superintendent of the Central Jail at Much to call in question the writ granted by the High Court of West Pakistan in favor of two convicted persons. Sir, ये नाम पढ़ दें.
मलक तूती खान एंड मेहरबान खान।
Setting aside
मलक
the
तूती खान एंड मेहरबान खान।
setting aside the convictions and sentences awarded by the Deputy Commissioner under the regulation and directing him not to refer the case against these two persons to a jirga, while leaving it open to the authorities to proceed against them in the ordinary courts. This case related to a settled area in Balochistan that is not a special area, and the facts were as follows. A case instituted against Malik
Tuti Khan and Meherban Khan and another 11 persons.
for the murder of
Zarif
had been referred to the district jirga, which found certain persons to be guilty but recommended the acquittal of the two appellants. The Deputy Commissioner did not feel satisfied in regard to the jirga's proceedings, upon which the recommendation in favor of Malik Tuti Khan and Meherban Khan were based. He accordingly remanded the case to the same jirga, which at first asked for time, but after some 5 months, when the case again came before the same jirga, the members returned it to the Deputy Commissioner, expressing inability to submit a final award as they thought that their minds had been greatly prejudiced by the approach of different persons on behalf of the parties. Thereupon, the Deputy Commissioner constituted a special jirga of 4 persons from other areas, which made different recommendations and in particular reported that Malik Tuti Khan and Meherban Khan were accomplices and
कंप्लिस
abettors.
कंप्लिस क्या होता है पता है आपको? शरीक जुर्म। शरीक जुर्म कंप्लिस क्या होता है? शरीक जुर्म।
And abettors in the murder of Zarif. The Deputy Commissioner accepted this recommendation after having obtained from the special jirga replies to various objections raised to their report by the different accused persons and other parties to the case. He convicted Malik Tuti Khan and Meherban Khan along with other persons and sentenced them to undergo terms of imprisonment. This was on the 22nd April 1957, and on the 5th of August 1957, the High Court of West Pakistan issued the writ of Serio mentioned above. They held that the provisions of the Frontier Crimes Regulation, under which the inquiry had been made into the question of the guilt or innocence of Malik Tuti Khan and Meherban Khan, were void, as offending against the provision of Article 5 of the Constitution of 1956 on two grounds. The first ground accepted by the learned judges was that the regulation was intended to apply in the first instance to Pathans and Baloches, and being based principally on recall or tribal considerations could not be regarded as falling within the rule of reasonable classification. The learned judges also referred to the power given by the regulation to extend its provisions and inferred therefrom with respect to the discrimination affected by the regulation that classification may be wholly arbitrary and capricious at the sweet will of the executive. The second ground on which these provisions were held to be discriminatory was that the executive authority with the deputy commissioner had an unfettered discretion as to the choice of persons belonging even to Baloch or Pathan tribes as to whether their cases should go to a regular court of law or to a jirga. It was held that the choice was arbitrary and was not governed by any guiding principle applicable to its exercise by the executive authorities. Special leave to appeal was granted to consider whether the provisions in question did indeed contravene the provisions of Article 5 of the Constitution of 1956. It may conveniently be mentioned here that it was stated at the bar by Mr. Yahya Bakhtiar for the respondents by a notification issued many years ago. The application of the regulation to British Balochistan was put on a territorial basis, thus excluding discrimination on the ground of race.
समझ आ गई बेटा कि इन्होंने पूरा केस आपके सामने रखा है। एक ये मलिक तूती खान और मेहरबान खान वाला केस है, क्योंकि ये 3-4 अपील्स हैं, और एक जो है वो ऊपर 200 वाला केस। तो इसमें वो सारा उन्होंने बताया कि फ्रंटियर रेगुलेशन का अथॉरिटी क्या थी फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन के पास। सबसे पहले उन्होंने ये क्वेश्चन उठाया कि क्या डिप्टी कमिश्नर के पास ये इख्तियार है कि वो मैटर जो है वो लोकल जिरगे को भेजे। तो उन्होंने बिल्कुल भेज सकता है इंक्वायरी के लिए। अब अगला क्वेश्चन ये आता है जो मेन क्वेश्चन है जो आगे आप पढ़ेंगे कि क्या जो फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन की बुनियाद के ऊपर अगर किसी बंदे को कोई सजा दी जाती है तो क्या वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के मुताबिक है कि यह कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ है। तो वो उसके ऊपर इन्होंने अपना भी पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू देना है, लेकिन अभी वो सारा वो जिरगे की जो हैसियत है उसके हवाले से डिस्कशन कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये जो मलक तूती को जो लोकल जिरगा था उसने बरी कर दिया था वो कि, लेकिन जो डिप्टी कमिश्नर था उसने दोबारा लोकल जिरगे को भेजा कि इस केस को आप दोबारा देखें, मलिक तूती और मेहरबान खान को। तो लोकल जिरगे ने 5 महीने के बाद दोबारा कह दिया कि हमारे अंदर जो कुछ माहिदीन है वो बायस्ड हैं, तो इसके लिए हम इसके ऊपर डिसीजन नहीं कर सकते। तो फिर इसके ऊपर जो डिप्टी कमिश्नर है उसने एक स्पेशल जिरगा बनाया जिसके अंदर 3 मजिस्ट्रेट शामिल थे और एक नॉन ऑफिशियल शामिल था। तो उन्होंने ये डिसीजन दिया कि ये जो है ये शामिल है और इसको जो है वो सजा मिलनी चाहिए। ये एज ए अकम्प्लिस है, अबेटर है, बीच में इसने अबेटमेंट की है, तो इसको जो है वो पनिशमेंट जो है वो लोअर जिरगा ने दी और फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन के तहत। तो वो अब हाई कोर्ट में आ गया था इस बुनियाद के ऊपर। तो लेकिन अभी हाई कोर्ट ने जो है वो सारा फैसला जो है वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के मुताबिक ही दिया कि कोई भी जो है प्रोविजन लॉ का अगर वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ है, रिपग्नेंट टू द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, तो दैट लॉ इज नल एंड वाइड। जी
क्रिमिनल अपील नंबर
ये तीसरी अपील आ गई 67 अपील नंबर सब्ज अली एंड मोहम्मद अकबर। ये भी वही है, इसमें भी इनके खिलाफ जो है वो क्रिमिनल चार्जेस हैं दैट रिलेट्स विद एम्बेजलमेंट। तो इसमें भी जिरगे ने इनको सजा दी है, तो ये भी जो है वो कोर्ट्स में। जी
Criminal Appeal Number 67 of 1958 relates to the Northwest Frontier Province, like the appeal of Sabzali and Muhammad Akbar. It is brought by the state against one Abdul Latif Khan, who is an accused person in a case of embezzlement in the capacity of treasurer to the government treasuries at Peshawar, Charsadda and Naushera. The case against him was referred by the Deputy Commissioner Peshawar to a jirga consisting of the City Magistrate Peshawar, the Assistant Commissioner Peshawar, the Assistant Secretary Public Works Department Peshawar and an Assistant Secretary in the Finance Department of the Northwest Frontier Province Government. The High Court of the West Pakistan, upon motion by Abdul Latif Khan, held that the relevant provisions of the regulation offended against Article 5 of the Constitution of 1956 and granted a writ as paid. All the three learned judges who heard the case were of the opinion that Section 11 of the regulation offended against the Equality Clause because there were no well-defined rules to guide and control the discretion vested in the executive authorities to withdraw a case from the ordinary courts and refer it to a jirga for trial. Two of them held that there was no discrimination such as to offend against Article 5 by reason of subsection 4 of Section 1 of the regulation providing for application in the first instance to Pathans and Balochis and such other clauses as the provincial government, the previous section of the Governor General in Council, might declare to be subject thereto. It may be noted here that all the three learned judges who heard the case have mentioned that by a notification published many years ago, the provisions in question were extended to all persons residing in the territories included in the Northwest Frontier Province, which was absorbed in the province of West Pakistan in 1955. In this case, also leave was granted to consider whether the relevant provisions of the regulation were repugnant to Article 5 of the Constitution of 1956.
समझ आ गई है। यहाँ पर इन्होंने एक और बात पॉइंट आउट की इस केस के अंदर अब्दुल लतीफ के, क्योंकि क्या एग्जेक्टिव जो एडिशनल कमिश्नर है उसके पास ये इख्तियारात हैं कि कोई भी केस ऑर्डिनरी कोर्ट से उठाकर जिरगे सिस्टम में डाल दे। इस क्वेश्चन को भी वो डिस्कस करेंगे कि क्या एग्जेक्टिव जो डिप्टी कमिश्नर है उसके पास ये इख्तियार है कि कोई भी केस जो है वो ऑर्डिनरी कोर्ट से जुडिशल सिस्टम से निकाले और जिरगे को हवाले कर दे, चाहे वो इंक्वायरी के लिए ही क्यों ना हो। अब ये जितनी भी अपील्स हैं इन सब के ऊपर जो अपीलेंट्स हैं उनका मौक़िफ़ यही है कि इनको फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन के तहत सजा दी गई है और फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन जो है वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के खिलाफ है। जी
The cases before the court thus fall into two classes. Two of them relate to orders of reference to jirgas by deputy commissioners. The other two relate to orders of conviction by deputy commissioners and therefore to what might be described as completed proceedings. The cases of Sabz Ali and of Abdul Latif Khan fail in the first category, but the orders made in these cases are not by any means similar. In Sabz Ali's case, it has been held that the reference to the jirga was valid under law and should be allowed to proceed, except that by way of enforcement of Article 7 of the Constitution of 1956, our direction has been made that the accused persons should be allowed the benefit of counsel at the trial. In the later case, on the other hand, the finding of the High Court is that the reference is illegal because it was made under a law offending against Article 5 of the Constitution of 1956, and they have been directed that it should not be proceeded with. The question common to both these cases is whether today and for the future, what is important since the trial in each case is yet to commence, the law allows of the making of references to jirgas and the other consequential proceedings provided for by the regulation. For as from the 7th October 1958, a great change has come about in respect of the fundamental law of Pakistan. On that date, the President of Pakistan made a proclamation whereby he abrogated the Constitution and declared martial law in the entire country. On the 10th October 1958, however, the President, acting in the capacity assumed under the proclamation, made an order providing for the continuance of laws, which is Order Post Proclamation number 1 of 1958 and is described as the
Laws Continuous in Force Order 1958, लॉज ऑर्डर 1958 कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को ख़त्म कर दिया और लॉज ऑर्डर जो है वो नया लीगल ऑर्डर 1958 इम्प्लीमेंट हो गया, जिसके अंदर फंडामेंटल राइट्स जो हैं वो ख़त्म कर दिए और उसके अंदर लिखा गया कि मुल्क को एज नियरली एज मे बी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के मुताबिक चलाया जाएगा, एज नियरली एज मे बी, और कानून साजी के तमाम अख्तियारात प्रेसिडेंट को दे दिए गए और प्रेसिडेंट के जो कानून साजी के अख्तियारात हैं वो किसी भी कोर्ट्स ऑफ लॉ में चैलेंज नहीं होंगे और लेजिस्लेटिव की जो कानून साजी के जो पावर है उसके ऊपर रिस्ट्रिक्शंस लगा दी गई। जी
सर 2 बच्चे वेटिंग लिस्ट में उन्हें ऐड कर लें।
जी
This order is deemed to have taken effect upon the making of the aforesaid proclamation and proceeds to declare in Section 2 that the Republic to be known henceforward as Pakistan shall be governed as nearly as may be in accordance with the late Constitution. This, however, being expressly made subject to any order of the President or regulation made by the Chief Administrator of martial law. Then in Section 4, it is declared that notwithstanding the abrogation of the late Constitution, all laws other than the late Constitution and all ordinances and other legal instruments, a number of which were expressly mentioned, were to continue to have legal force until altered, repealed, or amended by competent authority. And in the section itself was provided that the validity was to be subject to any order of the President or regulation made by the Chief Administrator of martial law. The
जी
Frontier Crime Regulation is a law which was in force immediately before the proclamation, and as such, this law is saved by Section 4, which, however, expressly does not retain the provisions of the Constitution of 1956 as law. Now, the question in the first two cases, with two of Sabz Ali and of Abdul Latif Khan, is whether the provisions of the regulation are to be applied according to their tenor and without reference to Articles 5 and 7 of the Constitution of 1956, which are included in Part 11 of that Constitution under the heading Fundamental Rights. Article 4 in that part provided that every law and every custom or usage having the force of law should be void to the extent of its inconsistency with the fundamental rights.
अब ये
It is
लाइन पढ़ लें,
clear
इसकी समझ आ गई आपको कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में क्या लिखा हुआ था कि एवरी लॉ, एवरी कस्टम और यूजेज, every custom, every law, Article 4 in that part provided that every law, हर कानून and every custom, रस्म, having the force of law, जिसके अंदर कानून की ताकत है, should be void to the extent of its inconsistency with the fundamental right. अगर कोई भी कानून जो है वो फंडामेंटल राइट्स के साथ इनकंसिस्टेंट है तो वो वाइड होगा, ये आर्टिकल 4 कहता है 1956 के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन का। जी
It is clear that these fundamental rights and the supporting Article 4 have not been retained as law, whereas the provisions of the regulation have been so retained. This is so for as Section 4 of the President's Order of
ये
the
लाइन
10th
समझ आ गई आपको अगली कि जब उन्होंने नया कानून बनाया, कॉन्टिन्यूएंस ऑर्डर ने मार्शल लॉ लगा, तो उसके अंदर फंडामेंटल राइट्स को भी खत्म कर दिया और आर्टिकल 4 को भी खत्म कर दिया। इट इज क्लियर दैट द फंडामेंटल राइट्स एंड द सपोर्टिंग आर्टिकल 4 हैव नॉट बीन रिटेन्ड एज लॉ, वो कानून के तौर पर नहीं रहे, वेयर एज द प्रोविजंस ऑफ द रेगुलेशंस हैव बीन रिटेन्ड, और रेगुलेशंस जो फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन है उसको उन्होंने रिकॉग्नाइज कर लिया और आर्टिकल 4 और फंडामेंटल राइट्स को उन्होंने इग्नोर कर दिया, उसको कानून नहीं रहने दिया।
This is so far as Section 4 of the President's Order of the 10th October 1958 goes, but we were invited to say that because by that order it is also provided that the country shall be governed as nearly as may be in accordance with the late Constitution. Therefore, the fundamental rights being related generally to all matters within the province of government should be deemed to have been kept alive. The argument is attractive but does not take into account the discrepancy between the direct provision in the order which makes the Frontier Crimes Regulation a law with effect from the 7th October 1958 in continuance of its previous existence as law under other instruments up to the 7th October 1958, and the equally direct exclusion of the provisions of the Constitution of 1956 from the laws of Pakistan. The order does not furnish any indication which might tend to weaken the primary and basic proposition upon which the order itself is based, namely that the Constitution of 1956 is abrogated, to say that the government of the country shall be carried on in accordance with the late Constitution is not equivalent to giving new life to that Constitution or accepting that any of its provisions retain the slightest validity of their own force. For that Constitution as well as for the new dispensation which replaced it, the date 7th October 1958 marks a point of no return. The abrogation of the Constitution of 1956 represents an irrevocable act of the supreme authority by which it was performed. It has a definitive effect in relation both to that constitution as well as to the order of things which has replaced it. Consequently, the words in Section 2 of the order is in accordance with the late constitution only mean that in matters affecting the government of the country for which no provision is made in any instruments issued under the authority of the new regime, where guidance is needed, it is to be sought by reference to the wording of provisions contained in the Constitution of 1956 applicable in the like case. The direction is one which operates by reference to a previous instrument without giving validity to that instrument. Equally, the supreme authority may have declared that in some particular respect, the actions of the government would be in accordance with some provisions contained in the Government of India Act 1935 or other constitutional instrument, or even in a constitution of some other country. By the Constitution of 1956, the highest authority of an overriding character governing all laws and legislation in the country had been given to the principles which were set out and enumerated as fundamental rights in Part 2 thereof. No law could be made in contravention of those rights on pain of invalidity. That prohibition is obviously not intended to continue, for the order gives overriding power now to the President and the Chief Administrator of Martial Law to make orders and regulations contrary to anything appearing from the words used in the Constitution of 1956. Therefore, there is no room for the argument that the Frontier Crimes Regulation must still, in the new order of the things, conform to the requirements of Part 2 of the Constitution of 1956. It it derives its validity afresh from the order, and its wires must be tested by reference to that order only. On that basis, it is clear that the regulation may be applied as from the 7th October 1958 according to its terms.
समझ आई बेटा? उन्होंने कहा कि कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के अंदर एज नियरली एज मे बी या लेट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के हवाले से कोई बात नहीं है। या तो आपने कानून को अडॉप्ट करना है तो उसको मुकम्मल अडॉप्ट करना है, या आपने कानून को अडॉप्ट करना है तो वो ऐसे अडॉप्ट नहीं करना कि आपने कुछ चीज़ें उसमें से पिक कर लेनी है और कुछ चीज़ें जो है वो निकाल देनी है। मिसाल के तौर पर आपने उसमें से फंडामेंटल राइट्स निकाल दिए, आर्टिकल 4 निकाल दिया, लेकिन लीगल ऑर्डर को निकाला, लीगल ऑर्डर उसको फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन को नहीं निकाला। तो उनका ऐसा नहीं हो सकता। कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अगर चल रहा है, मुल्क जो अगर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान 1956 के तहत चल रहा है तो उसके तहत ही चलेगा, और उसके तहत जो प्रेसिडेंट के जो इख्तियारात होंगे वो उस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के तहत ही होंगे। और जो उसका फेथ है ऑर्डर का, कॉन्टिन्यूस ऑर्डर का, उसकी जो डिटर्मिनेशन है वो भी 1956 के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के तहत ही होगी, और जो फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन है उसको भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के तहत ही जो है उसके फ्यूचर को डिटरमाइन किया जाएगा। ऐसा नहीं पॉसिबल कि आप कुछ उसमें से कुछ चीज़ें जो हैं वो आप अडॉप्ट कर लें और उसको कहें कि वो लेट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, और कुछ चीज़ें जो है आप उसमें से अडॉप्ट ना करें। जी।
In the case of Sabzali, a reference to jirga had been made, which must be held to be valid under the existing law. The direction by the High Court in Sabzali's case that he should be allowed to be defended by counsel at the jirga trial, being founded on Article 7 of the Constitution of 1956, is today without force and must therefore be set aside. The other questions arising in that case present little difficulty. It was said that the detention of one of the accused persons under the orders of the Deputy Commissioner pending the proceedings before the jirga was illegal, because such detention should, after the making of the reference, be solely within the jurisdiction of the jirga. The argument is fallacious, for it does not appear that such a jurisdiction vests in the jirga, and since the function of the jirga is to inquire into the matter and report to the Deputy Commissioner as to guilt or innocence of the accused persons, upon which recommendation the Deputy Commissioner is empowered to act in one of several ways, it seems clear that the duty of deciding as to whether or not the accused person shall remain in custody pending the disposal of his case still inheres in the Deputy Commissioner, despite the reference to the jirga. It is of course perfectly clear that all Deputy Commissioners are magistrates, and in that capacity qualified to order the detention of persons accused of criminal offences. The second point as to the validity of the reference for lack of expression of an opinion as to the experience of trial before the ordinary courts is equally of no weight, for the reference in this case was under Section 15 of the regulation, which by its terms enables a deputy commissioner to instruct a public prosecutor to withdraw from a prosecution before a court of sessions at any time prior to the making of a final order in the case, with the object that the case may be referred to a jirga, and thereupon the sessions court is required to stay proceedings and the deputy commissioner is required to refer the case to a jirga. The law does not require any declaration as to the expediency or otherwise. The third question raised was as to the constitution of the jirga is explained as whether it was constituted in accordance with the Pathan or Baloch usage. It seems that out of the jirga members nominated, 3 were stipendiary magistrates.
स्टाइपेंडरी मजिस्ट्रेट का क्या मतलब होता है? जिनको हुकूमत वजीफा देती है। मतलब वो जो स्पेशल जिरगा जो बनाया गया उसके अंदर 3 मजिस्ट्रेट थे, क्योंकि जो उनका अपना जिरगा था उसने उनके उसके मायदीन ने ये केस वापस कर दिया था इस पॉइंट पे कि हमारे जो मायदीन है वो बाइस्ड हैं। तो फिर डिप्टी कमिश्नर ने एक स्पेशल जिरगा बनाया था जिसके अंदर 3 मजिस्ट्रेट और एक नॉन ऑफिशियल जो था वो शामिल था।
The High Court has held that this circumstance by itself did not vitiate the constitution of the jirga, so long as it was convened according to the Pathan, Baloch or other usage. Reference was also made to Article
Act. Reference was also made to the Act 13 of 1954.
Passed by the Northwest Frontier Province Legislative Assembly, providing that jirgas should consist of 3 or more persons, whether officials or otherwise, convened by the Deputy Commissioner and presided over by a Section 30 magistrate. At a later stage in this judgment, I propose to consider the purpose and effect of this amendment at length, but at this point I think it is sufficient to say that, like the Frontier Crimes Regulation of 1901, this amending Act of 1954 is law having full validity in the new dispensation, and therefore it is not open to any party today to challenge the legality of a reference to a jirga, so long as that jirga is constituted in accordance with the law as at present in force. Reference was made in the arguments to the decision of this court, in this case Crown Ghulam Muhammad Khan of
आगे से पढ़ ले। Where also the jirga,
where also the jirga had included a majority of officials, but no reference was made during the arguments in that case to Act of 1954 mentioned above, as will appear from the following observations of my Lord the Chief Justice in his judgment.
जी
आगे पढ़ूं?
जी बेटा पढ़े इन्वर्टेड कॉमर्स।
It seems to us to be clear that this letter has the effect of amending the regulation, and that for that reason it was ultra vires provincial government, neither before the court of the judicial commissioner nor in concise statement or arguments before us was any provision mentioned under which the provincial government could amend the procedure laid down in the regulation for the constitution of the council of elders.
ये जो एक्ट था 1954 का, एक्ट 13 1954, ये फ्रंटियर क्राइम रेगुलेशन को रिकॉग्नाइज करता था, जिसके तहत जिरगा जो है वो फैसले कर सकता था और डिप्टी कमिश्नर जिरगे के पास फैसला के लिए केस भेज सकता था। लेकिन यहाँ पर पॉइंट ये है कि व्हाट इज द स्टेटस ऑफ द जिरगा। जिरगे का जो स्टेटस था बेटा वो बिल्कुल एक इंक्वायरी कमेटी के हवाले से था। तो जिरगे ने सिर्फ इंक्वायरी करनी है और इंक्वायरी करके केस डिप्टी कमिश्नर को फॉरवर्ड करना और डिप्टी कमिश्नर ने उसके ऊपर फैसला करना है। लेकिन यहाँ पर अगर जिरगा अपने हदूद से बाहर निकलेगा तो फिर जो है वो केस जो है वो खराब होगा। जैसे लॉर्ड चीफ जस्टिस ने क्या कहा, ये दोबारा लाइन पढ़े, इन्वर्टेड कॉमर्स के अंदर क्या है, ये लाइन समझे।
It seems to us to be clear that this letter has the effect of amending the regulation, and that for that reason it was via the provincial government. Neither before the court of the judicial commissioner nor in the concise statement or arguments for us was any provision mentioned under which that provincial government could amend the procedure laid down in the regulation for the constitution of the Council of Heirs.
हाँ, यहाँ पे उन्होंने क्या चीफ जस्टिस ने कहा कि हमारे पास उस जिरगे की जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है उसको चेंज करने का अख्तियार नहीं है। कोई कानून हमारे पास ऐसा नहीं है कि हम इनको ये कहें कि कबायली अमायदीन, इस अमायदीन ये को जो है वो आप इस सरदार को आप ना बिठाएं, फलाने सरदार को बिठा दें, मतलब इसका कोई डिफाइंड प्रोसीजर नहीं है। लेकिन ये आपने देखा है कि इसके ऊपर एक स्पेशल जिरगा बन सकता है जिसके अंदर वो स्टाइपेंड मजिस्ट्रेट जिनको वजीफा जो है गवर्नमेंट ने दिया है वो शामिल हो सकते हैं, प्लस एक नॉन ऑफिशियल। लेकिन गवर्नमेंट के पास, जैसे चीफ जस्टिस ने पॉइंट आउट किया, कोई ऐसा प्रोसीजर नहीं है, ऐसा कोई लॉ नहीं है जिसके ज़रिए से वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ जो काउंसिल ऑफ एल्डर्स है उसको रेगुलेट कर सकें। लेकिन ये जो कबायली इलाके हैं ना बेटा, ये कबायली इलाके जिरगे से ही चलते हैं। और ये जो जितनी खून रेजी हुई है फाटा में, ये अमेरिका ने पहले कबायली कायदीन को एक एक करके कत्ल किया है ताकि इनके दरमियान सुलह कराने वाला ना हो, और फिर खून रेजी हुई है। लेकिन हर वक्त अभी भी जिरगा सिस्टम चल रहा है। आपने अभी देखा होगा, ये कल की खबर है कि 2 छोटी बच्चियों, कमसिन बच्चियों को जिरगे ने वनी कर दिया, और जब ये केस रिपोर्ट हुआ तो उनको गिरफ्तार कर लिया गया। बनी में जो बच्चियां थे उसके भाई ने दूसरे कबीले के लोगों को कत्ल किया था, तो इन 2 कमसिन बच्चियों की शादी उस कबीले में कर दी, और जो अभी माइनर थी। तो जब ये केस रिपोर्ट हुआ तो उसको जिसने वो जिरगे का जो सरदार था जिसने फैसला किया उसको भी गिरफ्तार किया, और उन जिन्होंने शादी कराई उनको भी गिरफ्तार किया। तो ये जिरगे की जो डोमेन है वो इंक्वायरी की हद तक बड़ी इम्पोर्टेंट है, अगर वो इन सही तरीके से जो है वो इंक्वायरी करें। लेकिन अगर वो अपने इख्तियारात से तजावुज करते हैं और इक्वली ट्रीट नहीं करते, क्योंकि याद रखें कि 200 का और दूसरों का ट्रीटमेंट क्वेश्चन क्या था कि दैट वी आर नॉट ट्रीटेड इन अकॉर्डेंस विद द लॉ। लॉ के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्या कहता है कि एवरीबॉडी शुड बी ट्रीटेड इक्वली, और उसको इक्वल बुनियादों के ऊपर ट्रीट किया जाए। हमें इक्वल और फेयर ट्रीटमेंट जिरगे ने नहीं दिया। दैट इज वाई वी आर इन द कोर्ट्स ऑफ लॉ। जिरगे की जो कानूनी हैसियत है वो इस पूरे केस लॉ में आपको पता चल गई है, वो दैट इज ऑफ इंक्वायरी स्टेटस की। वो सिर्फ इंक्वायरी कर सकती है, फैसला नहीं कर सकती, रिकमेंडेशन दे सकती है, और डिप्टी कमिश्नर ने उन रिकमेंडेशन पर फैसला करना है। जी
The letter in question had been issued by the Northwest Province government to all deputy commissioners, directing them to form jirgas of competent magistrates, and where a sufficient number, that is to say 3 of competent magistrates, were not available to appoint tehsildars. That judgment clearly does not provide authority for holding that the constitution of the jirga in the case of Sabzali is not in accordance with law, since there is a valid legislative enactment under which such a jirga may be appointed. Accordingly, it would seem that the appeal of Sabzali and Muhammad Akbar should fail, and furthermore the direction that these persons must be allowed the benefit of counsel before the jirga must be cancelled as not being valid in law.
ठीक है। सब्ज अली तक उन्होंने क्या फैसला किया कि जिरगे का फैसला, जो सब्ज अली केस था, क्रिमिनल पिटीशन थी, उसमें उसकी हद तक जिरगे का फैसला जो था वो ठीक था। अब आगे अब्दुल लतीफ खान का केस है, उसमें उन्होंने क्या दिया।
In the case of Abdul Latif Khan, also the jirga was composed of officials. By itself, that circumstance does not affect the legality of its constitution. The other questions raised in this case as to the effect of Article 5 of the Constitution of 1956 upon the relevant provisions of the regulation is no longer, since the 7th October 1958, a living issue in view of the lapse of Article 5 along with other fundamental rights enumerated in the Constitution of 1956. These conclusions are sufficient for holding that the writ issued in this case by the High Court must be set aside, and the case against Abdul Latif Khan should be allowed to proceed before the jirga, to which it has been referred by the Deputy Commissioner, in the view which I am inclined to take regarding the effect of the order of the 10th October 1958.
जी बेटा, कहाँ से पढ़ रहे थे? स्टक हो जाता है, फिर स्टक।
Theref-
जी बेटा, स्टक हो जाता है बार बार।
Therefore, consider that it is open to me to reverse the judgment of the High Court in these two cases and to recall the writs issued by them unless I am satisfied that the view of the High Court on the point of repugnancy to Article 5 of the Constitution of 1956 is not tenable. सर
एक
आगे
मिनट,
पढ़ो।
एक मिनट, ये स्टक हो गया है इधर।
Now to the consideration of the cases of Doso and Malik Tuti Khan, both of which come from that part of West Pakistan province, which was previously described as Balochistan. The first question which arises is whether these two appeals can continue in face of the provisions contained on the order of the 10th October 1958. In other words, it is within the expression and the intention of that order that proceedings of the nature of these two appeals should be continued to a proper conclusion, or is it by expression and intention the effect of that order upon these appeals that they should abate? It is on this point that I find myself with regret at variance with the view which has found favor with my Lord the Chief Justice and my learned brethren.
अब सुप्रीम कोर्ट क्या कहता है वो 4 पॉइंट में?
The Supreme
जो
Court
मार्शल लगा उसका सब सेक्शन 4 क्या कहता है? द सुप्रीम कोर्ट
and the High Courts shall have power to issue the writs of habeas corpus. The point falls to be considered say the Supreme Court से पढ़ूं.
The Supreme Court and the High Court shall have the power to issue the writs of habeas corpus. ये writs हैं बेटा, ये आप थर्ड ईयर में पढ़ेंगे, इनकी नेचर क्या है। habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, quo warranto and certiorari। अगला पॉइंट जो है कि नो रिट शैल बी इशूड अगेंस्ट द चीफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर और मार्शल लॉ और द डिप्टी चीफ एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर मार्शल लॉ और एनी पर्सन एक्सरसाइजिंग पावर अंडर द अथॉरिटी ऑफ द लॉ, कि इनके खिलाफ कोई भी रिट जो है वो इशू नहीं हो सकती। किन के खिलाफ? चीफ मार्शल एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर, डिप्टी चीफ मार्शल एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर और एक्सरसाइजिंग पावर ऑफ जुरिस्डिक्शन एंड अथॉरिटी ऑफ आइदर। कि मतलब ये जो लोग हैं दे आर अबव द लॉ। तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन तो ये कहता है कि दैट एवरीबॉडी इज इक्वल बिफोर द लॉ and every person should be dealt in accordance with the law and every person should be given an equal chance to plead his case। तो यहाँ पर तो ये कहता है कि ये रेट्स इनके खिलाफ हो ही नहीं सकती। 6 में क्या कहता है बेटा, पढ़े।
Where a writ has been sought against an authority which has been succeeded by an authority mentioned in the preceding clause and the writ sought is a writ provided for in clause 4 of this article, the court, notwithstanding that no writ may be issued against an authority so mentioned, may send to that authority its opinion on a question of law raised.
ठीक है, उनके खिलाफ किसी भी किस्म की किसी और अथॉरिटी से ओपिनियन भी नहीं लिया जा सकता।
All orders and judgments made or given by the Supreme Court between the proclamation and the proclamation of this order are hereby declared valid and binding on all courts and authorities in Pakistan, but saving those orders and judgments, no writ or order for a writ issued or made after the proclamation shall have effect unless it is provided for by this order, and all applications and proceedings in respect of any writ which is not so provided for shall abate forthwith.
मतलब हर वो रेट जो है जो इस ऑर्डर से के मुताबिक है वो प्रिवेल करेगी, और हर वो रेट जो इस ऑर्डर के खिलाफ है, कॉन्टिन्यूस ऑर्डर के खिलाफ है, वो अबेट हो जाएगी, उसका कोई फ्यूचर नहीं होगा, वो
The
प्रोसीडिंग्स
particular
खत्म हो जाएगी। अब ये जो 200 ने जो अपील की हुई थी, वो उसने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के की बुनियाद पे की हुई थी जी।
The particular words whose effect is to be judged are the words at the very end of subsection 7, providing that all applications and proceedings in respect of any writ which is not so provided for shall abate forthwith. It is necessary for the purpose of this judgment to ascertain which is meant by the expression abate in this sentence, and further what applications and proceedings are to suffer.
इधर से पढ़े, इट सीम्स स्कार्सली इम्पॉसिबल।
It seems scarcely possible to apply that conception of abatement to the provision here under examination. Every circumstance combines to create the impression that the provision is for an immediate and peremptory cessation
सेशन
beyond
बियॉन्ड
all
होप ऑफ
recall. It for that reason all the more necessary that it should be ascertained with precision what applications and proceedings are amended by this order to suffer immediate and final uh, session.
सेशन। हाँ जी, इधर जो इम्पोर्टेंट बात है, यहाँ से पढ़ें, टू एक्सेप्ट द प्रोपोजिशन।
To accept the proposition advanced by the Attorney General amounts to holding that the provision in question provides for abatement of a proceeding not on the ground of procedural defect or lack of capacity or competency, but by reason of the cancellation of the fundamental rights which took effect from the 7th October 1958, so that as from that date the validity of any law still in force was not to be judged in relation to those rights. Now, it will be clear from the discussion above in the cases of Sabz Ali and Abdul Latif Khan that with reference to proceedings which on a date after the 7th October 1958 are still pending proceedings under Section 11 of the Frontier Crimes Regulation, there can be no manner of doubt that the validity of these proceedings is not to be judged in the light of any of the fundamental rights enumerated in the Constitution of 1956 as from the 7th October 1958, but it is equally clear that up to that date the duty of the courts was plainly to declare any law which did not comply with the said fundamental rights to be invalid. Therefore, any words contained in the order of the 10th October 1958 which are to have the effect of nullifying that duty as applying up to the 7th October 1958 must be words of the clearest possible import, since they would be words having retrospective operation in respect of the high judicial authority of the superior courts. That authority has been maintained and continued by the order of the 10th October 1958 and has been seen in relation to the questions before the court. There are no words in the order which may be brought to have retrospective operation. Therefore, I hesitate to accept an interpretation which would
तो दोबारा जी बेटा।
जाएगी कि पहले उन्होंने लीगल पॉइंट क्या उठाया कि किसी भी लॉ का रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव इफेक्ट नहीं होता, कि एक प्रोसीडिंग जो है वो पहले किसी कानून के तहत चल रही थी 56 के कानून के तहत, तो आप एक नया कानून ले आते हैं जिसकी बुनियाद पर पुराने कानून को भी खत्म कर देते हैं, उस पुराने कानून से रिलेटेड जो प्रोसीडिंग्स कंटिन्यूड होती हैं उनको भी खत्म कर देते हैं, तो ऐसा नहीं हो सकता। जी, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट।
Secondly, I do not recollect having found the expression abatement to be ever used in relation to the failure of a proceeding resulting from the failure of the right upon it was based. Abatement ordinarily follows upon defect of form or procedure or loss of capacity in parties, and it may not be safe to assume that the meaning of the word abate as used in the order of the 10th October 1958 is so widely different from the generally accepted senses of that word as is claimed by the learned Attorney General. It is true that if by the order of the 10th October 1958 any law has been wholly destroyed or deprived of effect whatsoever, then the issue of a writ to enforce any right provided for by such law becomes impossible. Any application or proceeding that may be pending whose purpose may be to obtain enforcement of such a right must therefore fail by reason of the right no longer being available, and not by reason of procedural or formal defects or loss of capacity, etc. The order of the 10th October 1958 could have been worded to provide that no writ should issue in such cases, although it might have been thought that such a provision was superfluous. But does the last sentence in subsection 7 of the section 2 make any such provision? I note that the words are not that no writ which is not provided for shall abate forthwith, but they read no
ये पढ़ेंगे, नीचे वाली लाइन पढ़ें किस बात का, इन्वर्टेड कॉमर्स में, कि नो रिट और ऑर्डर फॉर ए रिट इशूड और मेड आफ्टर द प्रोक्लेमेशन शैल हैव इफेक्ट अनलेस इट इज प्रोवाइडेड फॉर बाय दिस ऑर्डर। क्या आइंदा मुल्क में किसी भी अदालतों में कोई रिट और कोई ऑर्डर नहीं इशू होगा अगर वो इस ऑर्डर के मुताबिक इशू नहीं होगा। तो इसके ऊपर इन्होंने क्या पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू दिया?
It therefore becomes necessary to examine the order to see what kinds of writs have been expressly provided for, and it is in my opinion a reasonable assumption that when the words "unless it is provided for" are used, what is meant is something stronger than a conclusion based upon mere inference as to the provision. One must look diligently first for express provision, and if such be lacking, then for provision by implication of a strong and necessary character, directly affecting not the right sought to be enforced by the writ, but the competency of the writ itself.
ठीक है, उसके लिए उन्होंने कहा कि हम ऑर्डर को जो है वो डीपली स्टडी करना ज़रूरी है। अगर वो ऑर्डर जो है उसके अंदर कौन सी रेट्स जो है वो अलाउ की गई हैं और कौन सी रेट्स अलाउ नहीं की गई, इसके लिए हमें जो है ऑर्डर को डिटेल से पढ़ना ज़रूरी है, ताकि इस चीज़ का पता चल सके कि वो कौन सी रेट्स हैं जिसको उन्होंने अलाउ किया है। जी बेटा, समझ आ गई बेटा? ये सारी आगे भी सारी इसकी डिटेल ही है ये, लेकिन ये ज़्यादा आपके पढ़ने वाली है, ताकि इसके अंदर कुछ बात हो। आप पढ़ेंगे तो फिर मेरे से जो है इस पे क्वेश्चन करेंगे, तो फिर आपको इसकी जो है ज़्यादा समझ आएगी, क्योंकि आगे सारी इसके ऊपर ये थेरी ही है। लेकिन इसके ऊपर बेसिक पॉइंट जो है वो यही था कि ये जो कॉर्नेलियस थे, इन्होंने वो रिट जो है कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन की जो 56 है उसको उन्होंने इन्फोर्स किया, अपहेल्ड किया, और 200 का जो केस है उसको कहा तो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान जो है उसके तहत ही उसको डील होना चाहिए। यहाँ पे एक और इम्पोर्टेंट बात है जो हमने ऊपर डिस्कशन भी किया, उसको आपको पता भी चल जाएगा कि जिरगा का जो रोल है वो कोई इलीगल नहीं है। जिरगे का जो रोल है वो एक्ट 1950 और 54 के तहत जो है उसको रिकॉग्नाइज किया जाता है, लेकिन उसके जो डोमेन है वो अगर उससे निकल कर बाहर जाएगी तो फिर उसका रोल जो है वो इलीगल हो जाएगा। उसमें उन्होंने जो दो केसेस थे, सब्ज अली और अब्दुल लतीफ़ खान ने, उसमें जो जिरगे का फैसला था, वो जो रिकमेंडेशन थी जो डिप्टी कमिश्नर को दी गई, तो डिप्टी कमिश्नर ने उन रिकमेंडेशंस के मुताबिक फैसला किया, और लेकिन वो जो रिकमेंडेशन थी वो डिप्टी कमिश्नर के ऊपर बाइंडिंग नहीं थी। तो लेकिन ज़रूरी नहीं है कि जिरगे का रोल इधर भी गलत हो, हर केस में गलत हो। लेकिन 200 के केस में 200 ने जो प्ली बेसिक ली थी वो ये थी कि मेरे साथ प्रेफरेंशियल ट्रीटमेंट ली गई है। आई वॉज नॉट ट्रीटेड इक्वली बाय लॉ, कि कानून के मुताबिक मेरे साथ फैसला नहीं किया गया। और जब उसकी रेट सुप्रीम कोर्ट में पहुंची, उस टाइम तक जो है वो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान जो है वो ख़त्म हो चुका था, और फंडामेंटल राइट्स जो थे वो सस्पेंड हो चुके थे, आर्टिकल 4 सस्पेंड हो चुका था, तो जिसकी बुनियाद पर उसको इंसाफ जो है वो नहीं मिल सका। जी बेटा, ये मैं आपको ना पूरा भेजूंगा, तो आप इसको डिटेल से पढ़ के पढ़िएगा, और फिर मेरे साथ इसको डिस्कस करिएगा। जी बेटा।